What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Comically Boston, episode 198. And today we are breaking down episode 6 of Agatha All Along, titled Familiar by Thy Side. And I don't know if this is how the lyrics of the song go, like the rest of the titles have been, but I think this is referring to more so the teen as a familiar by thy side of Agatha. And coming off of last episode, the teen tossed Agatha and Jen and Lilia in the mud, and they sunk down to where? We haven't really found out where they sunk to. But we know Rio, the teen, and Alice were all still on the road, but Alice is dead from the last episode, which is very upsetting and very sad. And we don't actually see Rio or Alice this episode, or even Jen and Lilia, other than parts we'll talk about later. But this is more so the teen flashback episode telling us what is the backstory of the teen and where he came from, and connecting the dots for us on how he's connected to the Hex and WandaVision, and how he is connected now to the Agatha story and where he came from and his whole backstory. And this is a phenomenal episode. Joe Locke really shines. We get to meet the boyf, Eddie. Love that too, but let's get into it and break down all the little details we saw. I did love how last week closed out with Joe Locke getting to wear the crown, the blue crown, the kind of Wiccan crown, and then they're releasing promotional art with, you know, Joe Locke, Agatha All Along in the blue, and this looks very much like the art they released for Wanda for Multiverse of Madness. So maybe Joe Locke takes a villainous turn here, kind of like how Wanda did for Multiverse of Madness. I don't know. But I'm going to be fascinated to find out whether he's good or bad or what. You know, we find out who he is this episode and who did the sigil, and all that information is fascinating, and I love to hear that kind of stuff. So let's get into it. We open on the title of the episode, Familiar by Thy Side. We open on the teen adjusting his tie, and it seems like he's got a little yarmulke on, his curls, and it seems like this is his bat mitzvah, which I think is what, 15 years old, 16 years old for a boy or girl. I'm not Jewish, so I don't know the ins and outs of a bar mitzvah. I think I'm saying that right, at least. But we do see the teen, who we find out his name is William, and we see his mother and father, Jeff and Rebecca Kaplan, which is very interesting, and they're all here to watch him. Like he gives like a prayer at, I believe this is like a Jewish temple or something like that, and then that we see the bat mitzvah party afterwards, and we see that the teen meets Lilia at the party, and she, you know, does his like tarot card reading or palm reading or whatever, and she's reading his palm, and she says, "Your lifeline is broken in two." And we see this shot of his face and then a shot of an upside down version in the ball. And at this point, you know, his lifeline hasn't necessarily broken in two, but she's seeing, like, you know, the near future, and she's like, "Listen, party it up while it lasts, bub." I was confused at first when I saw Lilia at this bar mitzvah party giving out, you know, tarot card readings or palm readings. And I was like, is this the party? And this is happening in a flashback, or is this the trial? I was like not sure what was going on, but I believe this is all just flashback stuff. So we see that Lilia casts the sigil on him, and it works immediately because she goes to give the jacket to a woman, I believe it's Rebecca Kaplan, his mother, and hands her the jacket, and she's like, "Whose jacket is this?" And she's like, "I don't know, I don't remember." So immediately the effects of the sigil, even though she's the one that cast it, works on her, and she doesn't remember who he is at all. And this is why, you know, earlier in the season, she's like, "That boy has a sigil on him," and she doesn't realize, like, "Oh, that symbol looks familiar. I drew it. I'm the one that put a sigil on him." Why she put this sigil on him, we're still like, why did Lilia want to protect this kid that she didn't know? You know, like, she just figured out, like, she was like, "Listen, you're gonna be, your lifeline's split in two, you're going to be a real problem in the witchy community, and later in life I can see it. Here's that sigil." We see the Hex start to have an anomaly back from WandaVision, the big red hexagonal anomaly they call it, and something like during the bat mitzvah something starts to happen, and the last time something happened with this Hex, it grew and a bunch more people got stuck inside. So they all start to panic and people rush to the cars and they're driving crazy and everyone's rushing, thinking that it's growing, but it's actually shrinking, because what's happening at this moment is Wanda is closing the hex and, you know, saying goodnight to the kids and saying goodbye to Vision. And then we get that great line from Vision too when she's closing this down. What is grief if not love persevering? In his beautiful British little accent. I miss Vision so much. So we see that Teen is in the back seat of his mother and father's car, and the mother's driving, and she's driving crazy, and she spins out of control, dodging out of the way of a big truck, and they spin off the side of the road and they crash into a tree, and the tree hits directly on the back seat passenger door where Teen William was sitting, and we hear, "Good night, Tommy. Good night, Billy." And then Teen springs back to life where he was clearly dead in the back seat, and the parents were freaking out trying to get paramedics and calling the police, and he comes back to life and he's like, "Tommy!" So clearly what's happening here in my eyes is the soul of Billy Maximoff, when he was closed down, that hex attached itself onto William Kaplan here, and that's why his lifeline is broken in two, and he is... Not only is he one person, but he's also the second, and they're kind of the one and the same type of thing. He's William Kaplan, he's Billy Maximoff. Call him what you please, I'm going to keep saying Billy. We see the paramedics pull up, and we see Alice is one of the police officers. Eastview PD, I believe, is what that EPD stands for on the collar. And she did say she was a cop before we met her in the earlier episodes. Just cool that we get to see Lilia was at his bat mitzvah. Alice is his police officer that's showing up on scene of the car crash. How members of this coven were so close to him before he was even a part of it, you know what I mean? Jeff and Rebecca take William back to their house, and he is, you know, very disoriented, doesn't recognize any of this because it's now Billy Maximoff in the body of William Kaplan, and he's like, what the hell is going on? And even the dog knows that this ain't William because he's like barking at him like he's a completely different person. And then Billy can hear their thoughts, right? So he's clearly got magical abilities and he can hear people's thoughts. Kind of like Wanda, but I don't necessarily remember Wanda hearing people's thoughts. Not like this, at least. He just hears what people is thinking without even really wanting to. And he can hear them worrying in their heads and like their thoughts, but they're not saying anything out loud. So when he starts acknowledging them like thinking, they're like, what the fuck is going on with this kid? And he's like, stop worrying, and goes, maybe you're right, Mom. Maybe I just need to see my room and it will jog some memories. And she's like, how the fuck did you know that I was thinking that? You know, like, but he goes to his room and we see a Houdini poster on the wall, and there's a bunch of posters, but the one I saw first was the Houdini one, and then he looks at a picture of him and the family. There's a Mystic Rock poster, and then he looks into the mirror and says, my name is William Kaplan. I am William Kaplan. So he's got to convince himself that he's William Kaplan so that his parents don't worry anymore, type of thing. So he doesn't have to listen to them thinking every day like, oh, is he ever going to be normal again? And he's just like, alright, whatever. I'm going to appease them even though I don't remember shit. But Billy Maximoff is smart enough just to like kind of take William Kaplan's life and move on, type of thing. But we flash to 3 years later. At least it wasn't 5 years, friggin' endgame. 3 years later, and we see his boyfriend Eddie, and they're in the car. And he asks, what is this thing Billy's always carrying? And Billy's like goth now. You can see his little eye piercing, the little cut in the eyebrow. And I like goth Billy so much more. But he asks about the little wooden block sigil that he's always carrying around. He's like, it's impossible to solve. And then they kiss, and the boyfriend starts thinking, alright, I'm going to tell him that I love him. I'm just going to say, William Kaplan, I love you. And Billy pulls back, and he's like, I need to tell you something. He goes, yeah, okay, me too. And he's like, okay, me first. And like, doesn't want Eddie to be like, I love you. And he's like, yeah, I can hear your thoughts and that. So Billy goes first. And he tells Eddie about the accident and wants him to know the real him and that he doesn't remember what happened, anything before the accident. But he says he's not William Kaplan entirely, but he never mentioned the accident ever and talked about it with Eddie. So Eddie's, you know, hearing this for the first time, but he goes, but I love you too. And then he's like, too? I love you, the first time. And he's like, what? And then he kisses him and he's like, you don't think I'm crazy? He goes, oh, I do, but not for this reason. And then Eddie goes, if you're not Billy Kaplan, who are you? So then we go to Billy's room, and he's got a whole dossier laid out with newspaper clippings on, you know, things that happen in Westview and what's going on with Wanda and all types of things. And Eddie comes in to help, and he goes to take off his jacket, and he goes, no distractions, please, please, put those arms away. I really like the relationship between these two already. But apparently to Eddie, the anomaly, or the hex, was sold off as an Avengers training exercise, kind of like Iron Man 1, where he's telling Rhodey, he's like, what am I supposed to tell people? You took out an F-15 with an Iron Man suit. And he goes, I had, you know, normal BS, training exercise. So they're still using that excuse for anything that happens in the MCU. I'm surprised they didn't use that for the Battle of New York, friggin' Avengers 1. Oh, it's just a training exercise. You didn't see any of those aliens coming from the sky. I don't know what you're talking about. Training exercise. But so Eddie says, I thought it was a training exercise. And Billy's like, you're adorably trusting. And he opens up his laptop and he's watching one of Jen's skincare routines, which is hilarious. But then he switches to a video of the red dome, the anomaly, the hex. And he goes, look, it's a rune. And it's clearly the last episode of WandaVision where Wanda's throwing runes into the thing to beat Agatha and doesn't get her power fully drained by her. And Billy's like, it's a rune, it's witchcraft. So clearly he's already, you know, deep into the witchcraft and what's going on in the anomaly and the hex. So he's got to find out more, and he just can tell that his origin story is clearly from here. And he goes, I'm gonna go meet someone that used to live in Westview. And Eddie's like, and I'm adorably trusting? Like, so. But Eddie goes with him to help him. And last week there was a trailer for a you know, mid-season trailer type of thing that was teasing this next episode. And there was a shot of the back of this person's, you know, jacket and a bucket hat and his hair coming out. And everyone was like speculating who this was. And they're like, it's Mephisto, it's this, it's that. My guess was actually correct, because this guy in the hat was Ralph Boner. Friggin' Evan Peters back from WandaVision. He was Pietro, Wanda's like new fake recasted brother in WandaVision. He was also Quicksilver in the Fox X-Men universe, so that's why I threw everyone for a loop. But no, he is actually Ralph Boner, but he also tells us to call him Randall. I'm still gonna call him Ralph. But he has a little cross on his hat, and his beard's all grown out. He clearly looks strung out, hasn't been sleeping. But as he walks up to him and we see this creepy shot, he's in like a parking garage. He covers up the surveillance camera, and we just see him from the back, and he's walking up, and we hear Ralph go, are you Crazy Craft 17? And he goes, you must be Bonerific 69. Yeah, it's Ralph Boner. He goes, my name's Randall. And then he starts to tell Billy about Wanda, and it's like what happened to him in the hex. He goes, it's like watching yourself on TV, but in your head, but you couldn't turn it off. And he, you know, so he's starting to tell him about what the hex was like, and then he starts to think to himself, please don't ask about Agatha Harkness, please don't ask about Agatha Harkness. And then Billy, of course, goes, who's Agatha Harkness? He goes, come on! You know, like, it's a funny scene with him in the parking garage. I really liked seeing Evan Peters back for something as simple as this. Ralph says, Agatha hijacked my life, stole my house, said I was her husband. I was a terrible influence on Wanda's kids. Raise hell, demon spawn! You know, I love that scene too. And he goes, I held a really nice lady hostage in my attic. I think that's Monica's scene, right? And then he says, I poisoned a dog. So, fucking Ralph got forced to poison a dog from Agatha. So not only did Agatha kill Sparky too, she made Ralph do it. Fuck her. Agatha's a big meanie. But so, this is the line where it made me love Eddie. He goes, I poisoned the dog, and then Eddie just goes, woof. He's like, hey! Oh God, Eddie. Oh, so I was here for Eddie, I really was. Billy asks about Wanda's kids. He goes, oh, it was past tense, she had kids. Billy and Tommy. Billy goes, Tommy? And Ralph goes, yeah, Tommy, that little speedster. and his mind-reading brother. So now, the way he said it, like, I was like, oh, is he putting together the dots here that this might be Billy because of the Agatha Harkness thinking it bit, you know, that just happened? I don't know, man. That's at least what we're thinking, right? But then he asked, you know, what is Agatha Harkness doing in Westview now? And he's like, I don't know, she seems real confused. She's acting like nothing happened. She's just a nosy neighbor and just in the neighborhood. And he goes, oh, she's harmless? And he goes, I didn't say that. You don't want to know what kind of crazy that lady eats for breakfast. And then he goes, all right, I accept cash for this information, or I can give you half off of my one-man show in Paramus. And he's like, I'm like, what? But Billy goes home. His mom wants to watch a psychological horror movie, and his dad made one of Eddie's favorite meals. I'm like, oh man, these are some cool parents. They don't give a fuck that he's gay. They're just happy he's alive because his mom almost killed him in a car accident. Well, brush right on past that. But then we cut back to Billy's tricked out room. He went upstairs because he said he needed to do homework, but he's not really doing homework. He's just researching still. But in Billy's room, all tricked out with posters still, we see a Wizard of Oz poster. We see a Lorna Wu poster. Fleetwood Mac, hell yeah. Stevie Nicks, love me some Fleetwood Mac. More so, love me some Stevie Nicks. And he's listening to Lorna Wu's ballad of The Witch's Road. And he's doing homework, and he's writing about the sigil, and he writes down on a piece of paper, Wanda Maximoff, dead. Vision, dismantled. Tommy Maximoff, missing. And Billy Maximoff, he's like, what do I write? Do I write me? Not sure yet. Not sure who Billy is or what Billy is. He's still trying to figure that out. And we see one of his notes says, Agatha Harkness, still in Westview. And then he starts to Google ancient pictures of Agatha Harkness and starts to find weird little Reddit links and stuff like that, and finds this rabbit hole of pictures of this woman that are clearly hundreds of years old, but she looks exactly the same. Love that kind of witch stuff where you're like, oh, this bitch is 400, but she hasn't aged a day. Creepy, but also like, how many people has she killed in that amount of time? If you're immortal, you're gonna start killing people, let's be real. Like Dracula, you know, immortal people kill other people. You know why? Because they get bored of living forever, and then they start murdering people because they start to find out who they are, and they gotta protect their past, right? And one of the links says that she is the only known survivor of the Witch's Road. And then he starts to connect the dots a bit. And he's listening to the song, The Witch's Road. And it says, at the end of the road, a witch may find what's missing. And he looks at Tommy's missing note that he did. And he takes off to Westview. And he pulls up to Agatha's house. And he sees Wanda's foundation of her house next door. Has a creepy little moment of looking at that like, oh, what happened there? But he subconsciously knows, and we all know, right? Wanda tore down her house, right back down to the studs that she had built with the hex initially, but yeah, poor Wanda. And they doubled down like 3-4 times that Wanda's dead in this series, and I'm like, listen, no, Wanda can't just be dead. I refuse to believe. And right before Billy walks into Agatha's house, he gets a text from Eddie, and Eddie texts him saying, I love you back, and with a heart, and it's a black heart emoji, which is just, you know, another weird little black heart coincidence between what happened earlier in the season between Rio and Agatha. So this is catching us up to now Billy's perspective of what happened when he broke into the house. We saw, I believe this was episode 1 or 2, I think it was 1, where he breaks into the house and then she chases him, and we see it from Agatha's perspective as she's this cop. But we get to see what really was happening in this interrogation and what's going on. And breaks into the house, and he takes Agatha's little locket, the Mother Maiden Crone locket, and then he takes off out the window, and we see the whole chase, runs down the street, gets hit by Mrs. Hart's car. Hooligan! Right, like she yells at him. And then we see Agatha in this interrogation, and she's got a fake gun on her hip, and she's like wearing this stupid shirt, and it's just in her living room where we saw this whole scene in like an interrogation room. Agatha's clearly losing her mind, clearly in a true crime kick. We see the part where she kicks him off the chair in the interrogation room, and she just kicks him, and he's like, hey, what the fuck? Why would you just kick me? This scene was so much funnier seeing it from Billy's perspective and what actually happened, and not this like true crime drama episode of Mayor of Easttown like we were thinking, or True Detective, whichever it was. And he's like, listen, I think you typecast me here as a mouthy teen, which is what we've heard her refer to him as in the past episodes. And then we see her write down, total loser or totally lying, which she did in the first episode as well. And then she slaps down the pictures of Wanda in the initial episode, but now we see here that it's just pictures of her shrubs, like she just walked out into her front yard and was taking pictures, like as if it was a crime scene like it was in the first episode. First episode was like an actual true crime drama that I was interested in. Now seeing what it was actually like behind the scenes is just comical, right? It's just hilarious to see how dumb and how like just brainwashed Agatha is at the current moment. But we see Agatha snap out of her illusion for a quick second, and he tries to free her with, you know, saying his counter spell or whatever you want to call it. And we see her stuff him in the closet, and he's like, hey, I don't want to go back in the closet, you know? And then we hear what he really says, where in the first episode we got sigiled, and she's like, come again, and then it gets sigiled again, and she's like, hi, and she doesn't hear it. We get to see the perspective of what he actually says, and I have a clip here of what he actually says.
My name is William Kaplan.
Say again.
Billy Maximoff.
Ooh, and this is like 35 minutes in, and we hear him say, I am Billy Kaplan. No, I am Billy Maximoff. So he's one, he's both, who cares? He's Wiccan, he's awesome. He's Wiccan awesome. Sorry, Boston dad joke, it's okay. So now we have like, you know, I was like, ooh, is this an episode? And they could have ended it right here at the 35-minute mark, but they gave us 10 to 15 more minutes of like some juicy stuff at the end here. And we get Agatha pulling herself up out of the mud. So maybe she was thrown in the mud, but now she's just, instead of sinking down somewhere, she's pulled herself right back out of the mud. And we see yellow leaves, and there's like a yellow tint to the air, which we saw some yellow stuff in the trailers that we were been waiting for. So clearly this is where it comes in, and maybe the full next episode is where it takes off to. And we see Billy break the sigil, the little wooden piece in his hand, and kind of drop it. And Agatha steps up out of the mud and looks at him and goes, that was quite the debut. And she goes, you were so convincing. What's a sigil? Power's what I need. And she's like, clearly you're not lacking for that. And she's like, even with the sigil, you and your mom have the same tell. I wasn't sure till you blasted me, just like Wanda would've. And then we hear Agatha say, it's nice to see you again, Billy, right? And we remember back to where she was their nanny, and he's like on the couch, and little young Billy. I really liked the kid, Julian, I believe is his name, that played young Billy. He was great, so I would have loved to seen him age up, but he's just still too young, and they wanted to jump to now teen, and Joe Locke's been awesome as him, so I'm okay with the recast there to age him up properly. But it does remind you of that WandaVision scene where he's like, you're weird, Agnes, like on the couch. So clearly these two have met, and she recognizes that he is Billy Maximoff. And Billy says to her, you can hear me now? And she goes, every witch with a beating heart can hear you now. And then Agatha goes, I've killed my share, right? Like she goes to count, and then she's like, too many to count. My share I've killed. And you're just like, ooh, evil Agatha and dark Agatha is so devious. And Billy goes, I'm not like you. And she goes, where have I heard that before? And she goes, tell me, where have you come across this new body of yours? And she goes, I don't blame you. You saw an empty vessel and you moved in. Who cares if you broke the rules? That's what makes you a witch. And I have the full conversation she has with him here. And this is some juicy dialogue. I really like this scene.
Don't you dare feel guilty about your talent. You survived. Like witches have been doing for centuries. You saw an opportunity, an empty vessel, and you moved in. So you broke the rules. Big deal. That's what kept you alive. That's That's what makes you special. That's what makes you a witch.
Ooh, so she's trying to like win him over here, but she's also saying what kind of happened. So this body was dead, and this spirit, you know, that was getting killed or, you know, taken away from Wanda's magic, decided to attach itself to the closest empty vessel it could find, and it was William Kaplan. So that here's Billy Kaplan, which is very, very close to how the story goes in the comics, which is fascinating and just cool to see for that side of things. Like all the fans that are like, oh my god, this is how the comics go, you know, like really cool. Makes me almost want to get into the comics myself, in particularly this one storyline where it's called Avengers the Children's Crusade, and this seems to be Wiccan right here on the cover, right? And Wanda in the middle there. So I feel like that's a big Wanda story, so, and Wiccan, so I would love to read that, and probably will get on that soon. But I love what she said in that clip there. Oh, you broke the rules, but it's okay. That's witch has been surviving like that for centuries. It's what makes you a witch, right? So now he's a witch. He's a part of that coven like he always wanted. And he's clearly got more power than he's been leading on to. And she goes, okay, now we should finish the road. And he goes, I could do this alone. And then tries to use his powers and it doesn't quite work. And he goes, whatever, you know they're there. I'll go alone. And she's like, oh yeah? You'll make it on your own with those powers you can't control without using a temper tantrum? And he's like, argh, gets mad. And then she goes, what does Billy Maximoff want at the end of the road? Is it to find Mama? Robo Papa? Oh, there was two of you. You want to find Toby. It's Tommy. Yeah, that's what I said, right? Like, fucks up poor Tommy's name too. I was like, Toby Maguire, Spider-Man? He's here? No, Tommy, his brother. So now I'm thinking, wait a second, so is Tommy like gonna be what the rest of this is about? We're trying to find Tommy? Or that was what the rumor was about Vision Quest. So maybe this is to get to the end of the road and then figure out what happens from there, right? Maybe bring back Wanda, and then maybe Wanda and Billy have WandaVision Season 2 retitled as Vision Quest, and Wanda and Billy go on a quest to find Vision and Tommy. Maybe. I would like that. I'd watch it. But I love Agatha, this scene. She's like, God, you really are a Maximoff, or this wouldn't be so dramatic. And then she's talking, she's covered in mud, she's using her friggin' hair as a mustache. Like, come on. Agatha's too funny, but she's also such a dark bitch. But Billy says to Agatha, I won't trust you ever. And she goes, fine, got it. Let's go find the next trial. Last one there's a nice person. And then Billy goes, I'm not that nice. And credits roll. And this is episode 6. Next episode, episode 7 will probably be the next trial. Billy and Agatha together. But I'm sure Jen and Lilia will probably be there. But we saw in the upcoming trailer a shot of Jen and Lilia covered in mud. But they look like they dropped down from somewhere, the way Lilia's looking up. So the way Agatha crawled her way out, maybe these two just sunk somewhere and they're somewhere else. So we'll reconvene with them later, I'm guessing. But this next episode, I think, is also going to be the one that's the trial here, where they're all as like Agatha's the green witch, Lilia's is the good witch of the north, Billy is Maleficent, and I don't know what Jen's character is over there. Maybe the Snow White's evil witch that gives her the apple. Maybe that's kind of what I'm getting the vibe from there. Like, I'm a Snow White expert. I've never even seen that movie, but just the way the hair looks kind of jogged my memory there of that character. So, you know, we see at least the 4 of them in that next trial, and that episode looks hilarious. And maybe that's episode 6 and not the next trial. But then I also saw this shot in the trailer of this yellow-dressed person with kind of curly hair in front of, like, this gazebo with, like, leaves around it. And she doesn't look like anyone I've recognized from this series. And I was thinking maybe she's Alice, but I don't know. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense either. Maybe this is an entirely new character that we're meeting. I don't know. Speaking of characters that I would like to see again, though, and we will probably see next episode, Rio Vadal, the Green Witch. I'm still waiting to see her in that, like, green hooded, you know, cloaked thing that we saw in the initial trailers way back before this season started. And then there's this last shot that I don't believe was in this episode, but it's probably going to open up next week's episode, so I'm very curious to see where this leads to. And it's Agatha and Billy looking at this castle, and it looks spooky, and it's all yellow sky, but that seems to be the next location on the road, and maybe that is where the next trial takes place with the tarot cards, and it will be Lilia's trial, and this is why the swords drop from the ceiling. I don't know. Maybe that will be episode 8, but I have a feeling this trial will be the next week, and then the week after that is the finale, and that's Halloween, and we have 2 episodes back to back. So stay tuned for that, y'all. If you guys have been enjoying Agatha and the series, comment below all your thoughts. I would love to hear what you guys think and where you guys think this is going. What did you think of Billy and his boy Eddie? I really was here for that, and I loved how this flashback connected the dots on who Billy is and what's happening, but also kinda just with the end there progressed the story between Agatha and him just a little bit more. And this show is called Agatha All Along, so people probably would have been pissed if this was an entire episode just on Billy's character. So the way that they tie it in with him and her being, you know, together again at the end, I don't think anyone's going to be upset with this episode. And if you are, fuck you. Because I thought this was great, and Joe Locke was phenomenal, the boy was hilarious, Evan Peters as a surprise cameo is great, and I don't think it will be the last we see of Evan Peters, maybe for Ralph Boner actually, but I don't believe it will be the last surprise cameo we get. I think the last couple episodes here, there's going to be more surprises and more things going on here, and I've been really enjoying the trial by trial episode type of thing, and I really enjoy the Coven. I really hope Debra Jo Rupp comes back and Alice comes back, because I miss them dearly already, and Alice has only been gone for an episode, but poor Debra Jo Rupp, I really loved her the most, and I miss her. And I'm curious to see where Rio fits into this trial, because she's still alive, right? But she was also death and collecting the bodies, which Alice is the body, and she wanted bodies from Agatha. I don't know. There's something going on with Alice. I believe Rio. I believe there might be some kind of Rio backstory flashback coming up soon that we should see. Maybe they'll save that for the finale type of thing to show what really happened between Agatha and Rio, but it would be like a long wait to start that mystery for Agatha and Rio in episode 1 and then not pay it off to the finale. So I'm expecting it next week, but also there's a part of me that's like, it's probably coming in the last 2 episodes. But they're also teaming up 2-episode finale with 8 and 9, so maybe both of those episodes connect and are so good that you want to watch them back to back. But breakdowns will be coming the day after. This comes out on Thursday, the next one will come out next Thursday, and the following breakdown will come out on that Halloween, which I believe is that Thursday. 2 episodes, I'll come out with both of them that day. I might do episode 8 individually and episode 9, but they'll both come out that day. So stay tuned for that, y'all. And more movie reviews coming around the corner. I got some really good ones, some good watches I watched this week. And Beetlejuice was out this morning, so go check out that movie review if you hadn't. I actually really liked that movie. I hadn't seen it fully in its entirety, and I'm glad I did. I sat down for that full adult watch, you know what I mean? Every now and again, you just need to give adult eyes a pair of a viewing of a movie that you haven't seen since you were a kid, and it changes, you know? You either hated it as a kid, maybe you like it now, or you loved it as a kid, and you're like, I can't believe I like this, you know? Like, so your mind changes, but stay tuned for more breakdowns, Penguin breakdowns, Agatha All Along, movie reviews, Comically Boston podcast on Monday, talking about the weekly nerdy news. Stay tuned for all that. Hit that bell so you don't miss future videos. And if you made it this far and want to support me further, the best way to do that is liking this video, subscribing if you're new, commenting below, and if you'd like to follow my other social medias, links for all those down in the description below. My name is Big Cam. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you beautiful people in the next one. Peace.